up, YouTube? It's me, Dr. Giselle Martin, aka Dr. Jazzy Fit here. Thank you so much for tuning in to this channel today. We are going to be chatting with Erica James Strayhorn, based out of Atlanta, GA, ATL in the house.
Yes, yes.
So, Erica, thank you so much for being here. Please tell our listeners, our viewers today, a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Erica James Strayhorn. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist based in Atlanta. My private practice is called Erica James Counseling LLC. And the focus of the kind of therapy I do is really based on self-care, simply because the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. And nurturing and cultivating that relationship can really be done through self-care. And, really all of the relationships that we have with other people and other things stem from the one that we have with ourselves. When we learn how to cultivate and love and heal ourselves with ourselves, by ourselves, from within, then that can help us create healing and loving relationships with other people.
Yes, absolutely agreed. And we're going to get into this today. We're going to talk about romantic relationships.
Yes, my favorite.
I know, I bet. I want to ask, because you hear so much about communication in relationships, are there any other ingredients that people seem to overlook aside from just communication?
How much time do we have? There's so many things, and it's no one to blame. We don't come equipped with knowing what we need and what we don't need in relationships. I will say that communication is key. Yes, it is. That may not be the most important thing, or it may not be the most important thing all the time. I think understanding somebody's likes and dislikes, understanding if there's compatibility around your principles and morals. With communication, there's a lot of things even in that, it's important, but do you know how to communicate? Do you know how to communicate in a way that your partner can receive it? Do you know, when is the best time or how to communicate some really important information that could be confronting. A lot of times, especially in, relationships, marriages, people are afraid to say how they feel about something because they're afraid of how that's going to impact their partner, or, if I say that I feel this, my partner might leave me, and so I think there's a lot of work to be done with the individual on being confident and comfortable with honoring their own voice and trusting that no matter what they have to say, they know how they can say it, so to speak, and they're willing to work through whatever that issue is with their partner. So there's a lot, and that's just scratching the surface.
Just thinking about what you just said, that's like 15 questions in my head. Yeah. Within that, and you mentioned chemistry and values a little bit, which would be more important, or would it depend on the relationship?
Well, I think those things, they have different, they kind of are interchangeable as the relationship grows, I think in the beginning, it's that chemistry. It's like, oh, he's attractive, she's attractive, he looks how I like my partners to look, and that kind of chemistry, and do we like the same things? Do we vibe well? Do we, have similar interests? Okay, cool. And then over time, the other things that come up in the relationship, like the principles, and, do we have the same goals in life? Do we have the same values in life? What do we value? And because, relationships they can't be built and sustained on love and lust and attraction alone. There's a lot of other things that build a relationship, that are part of the relationship. And so in the beginning, again, that chemistry is really important. And then as you start to deepen the relationship, let's find out what our morals are. Let's find out what our principles are. Are they different? If they're so different that it's like a huge difference, then maybe we might need to backtrack this a little bit. If they're pretty similar, okay, cool, let's keep going. And, as you're working on that stuff, as you're working on figuring out principles and goals and where are we as a couple and what are our life goals together, the romance might kind of drop out, because that stuff isn't really romantic. When we start talking about planning for our future, how many kids we want, where we want to live, what our finances look like, talking about finances is not really, well, it could be sexy, but for the most part, it could be. However, a lot of the nitty gritty parts of their relationship is kind of harder to maintain some of that intimacy and some of that that connection and that chemistry. And so then it's like, okay, well, let's shift back a little bit and get kind of refocused in the chemistry. It can be a dance sometimes, a little bit of a back and forth.
Within that back and forth, what is necessary for each partner to give or time and attention? Would it be more attention to the other person's love language, or what is necessary for that? Because I think a lot of people realize that that's necessary, but they don't know how to get there.
Sure. So that is a great question, and I think it kind of depends on the individuals and the couple itself. You know, I always remind when I am doing couples work, I always remind each other. I remind them that it's partner one, partner two, and the relationship. So there's 3 parts of the relationship, and sometimes when each partner kind of starts, you know, they're really flowing in their job, they're really flowing in their lives. You know, they're working out, they're doing their thing, their friendships are popping, and they're both kind of focusing on that stuff. And sometimes the relationship suffers, and it starts to show up as little arguments about little stuff, or, you know, how come you're not spending time doing this? And we used to do that together. And so that's when it's time to bring all of that amazing energy that you're cultivating externally. You have to remember to bring that back into the relationship. And so sometimes it looks like creating a couple's mission statement, like really sitting down, like, you know, businesses have mission statements. So really sitting down and writing out, what are our goals as a couple? So what is our mission statement as a couple? So when we feel that things are getting kind of off, or we feel like we're not really communicating, you know, somebody's sleeping on the couch, we're having arguments over silly stuff, let's open up our mission statement and remember why we're in this. And maybe that can help us refocus a little bit. And then within the mission statement, there's different types of standards that you can create. Like, write it out. And, you know, this is the part of the relationship that isn't necessarily romantic or sexy. But when you have some of these documents in place, you don't really have to think about it as much, you know? So you can write out standards like, you know, each partner is going to dedicate a certain amount of time to their physical health, meaning that they're going to work out a certain amount of time per week. You know, they're going to choose healthier foods 80% of the time versus, you know, unhealthier foods 20% of the time. You know, they're going to, how much time are we going to spend with each other? You know, because some partners are like, one partner might be like, quality time is my love language, so I need to see you like all the time. We need to be hugged up on the couch. And the other partner's love language might be acts of service. And so there's kind of not really a disconnect, but we got to figure out how to work within that. And so having some stuff actually written out, and, you know, understanding that these types of things are flexible and growing documents, and you can change them as you go along. But I think at least starting with a mission statement can be really helpful, because it's kind of like your North Star. And when things are kind of off, you're getting kind of confused, and it's like, okay, we love each other, but like, what are we even doing anymore? Because I don't even know. We lost. Like, it's just, things are kind of chaotic, especially right now in a crisis. And, you know, COVID-19, everybody's lives have kind of been blown up. And, you know, people are working from home now. Schools are happening at home. Everything's happening at home. And that can put a huge strain, a tremendous strain on a relationship. And so kind of getting back to basics, looking at the mission statement, maybe even editing the mission statement and changing it up a little bit. That's like another form of accountability for the relationship.
I absolutely love that. I think that's the first time I've ever heard anybody suggest that before. So
yeah. And I work on that with my clients. I've done it with couples, and I also help clients write their personal mission statement. So whether they're in a relationship or not, this is how they can. It could be an answer to the problem of losing yourself. So when you're in a relationship and you feel like you put all of your time and energy into the relationship or into your partner, and you feel like you've lost yourself, that's when you can go, oh wait, let me go pull out my personal mission statement and make sure I'm still doing things to honor that. And after you read it, it's like, oh right, I need to be going to the gym a little bit more, or I need to be spending time with my friends, or I need to be spending alone time, getting back into yoga, getting back into meditation. And having a personal mission statement that is independent from your relationship can kind of help be that buoy for you, so you don't get too far gone into the relationship.
Girl, I'm going to use that on myself. That is awesome. That is great.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like a lifetime vision board almost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great way to look at it, because it is something that you can utilize for every stage of your life. And, you know, I have a personal mission statement. My husband and I have a couple's mission statement, and when we look at the ones that we have now compared to the ones that we had when we first started, it's like it's not night and day, but it is. There are some differences, because when we first wrote it, we weren't married, we were still dating, and now that we're married and we're working on growing our family, we'll eventually have a family mission statement.
Oh, love that. I love that. Black love.
Okay.
Yeah. Wonderful. Um, yeah, I mean, and you mentioned also COVID. And I mean, if you look at the news, which I have been doing my absolute hardest to keep that news off, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of chatter around heightened divorce rates. People are being displaced from their homes simply because they can't stand their spouse.
Yeah.
What do you think people can do to, I mean, whether it's their kids or their spouse or whoever,
right,
in their homes, like how can you coexist in the same space?
Yeah, so I think that's really unfortunate. And what that really brings up for me, and I know, every situation is different. However, what that brings up to me is that there were probably issues going on before. And, when you already have some instability going on, it's almost like a card. What is it? A house of cards. When the foundation of the house of cards is jiggling, add on one or two more cards, and the whole thing's going to fall down. And so I think it is unfortunate. However, a lot of things change when there's crises like this that happen. It really brings up a lot of stuff to the surface. And I think for those who are not in that space yet, who are not like, okay, we're getting a divorce and this is over, because you can kind of start to feel some tensions, you can start to feel some stuff kind of coming up. That's when I think it's time to, again, go back to the basics. I think as those people who do have a lot going on in their home, so again, you're married, you have kids, now you're working from home, school's at home, dinner's at home, movie theaters at home, fun stuff's at home, the gym's at home, everything is at home. You feel like you don't really have an escape, even though we can go outside, we can take walks, but like a lot of the things that we use to kind of connect to ourselves or just to get a break from that environment they're not there anymore. And so it's figuring out what can we do within the house to still be able to connect with yourself first and foremost, and then find some time to connect with your partner. And, that could look like designating a part of your home if you have the ability to. Like, this is my corner, and like nobody is allowed over here during the hours of like 7 and 8, and this is where I'm going to be by myself for this time. Or, sending the kids to bed early, so you and your partner can have a date night, in the backyard or downstairs or whatever the case may be, and really trying to still cultivate that intimate connection with each other and within yourself in the midst of this. I've been hearing so many people, so many families and couples talking about going on walks together, they're cooking together more, they're doing family game night. So it really is going back to that stuff that we may have done, back in the day before there was so much technology, playing games. Let's get the Monopoly out. Let's have a movie night together. Let's go for a walk. Let's cook together. All of those let's do a puzzle. All of those things that I think can help everybody reconnect to each other. I think it's important to find ways. And I get that it's stressful. I get that it's like, dang, we're already doing all this stuff. Now I got to do more stuff. Yes, sometimes you do. Sometimes you do have to do more stuff, especially right now. And then you'll over time you'll see the added benefit of it.
I think that's very wise advice. You mentioned, back in the day.
Right.
Back in the day, the divorce rate wasn't nearly as high. Families stayed together. Yes. Sometimes that wasn't necessarily the healthiest options.
Right.
However, I do think that there is something to be said about that, and being very intentional about the quality time that we are spending. It's actually quality time. We're not just in the same space.
Right.
We're actually exchanging ideas, exchanging experiences. Mm-hmm. I think there's some beauty in that, and finding new experiences, like learning how to cook.
Right.
I saw that they have like virtual cooking classes and stuff now. Like, that is so cool.
So cool.
And it's really romantic. You can put some candles out and like I said, send the kids upstairs. Don't come upstairs regardless of what you hear.
Right.
In that room. And I think that's a great idea. I do want to also address some of the things that people who have blended families go through, because we've touched a little bit on marriage and dating and divorce, but once people get remarried, or if they're dating and they're divorced and they might have kids or whatever, how can you approach that situation from a healthy perspective?
Yeah. So I think the cool thing about this is a lot of the same stuff applies. Like when there is the situation of a blended family and there's, ex-wives and new wives and stepdads and all those beautiful, amazing things. Because I feel like, community is very important right now. And so the larger your community can be, I think the better. And so I think sometimes it's about shifting our perspective of blended families. I think for a while it was kind of looked down upon. It was, people will kind of judge or, just have some disempowering thoughts about that. And in my opinion, the more the merrier, as long as everybody's, communicating again, being transparent again. I think this is an amazing time to kind of bring about some conversations of a family mission statement. Now that we've blended all of these amazing people together, what awesome stuff can we create together? Like, how can we all support and love each other? What can it look like for the stepmom and the biological mom to have a relationship? And they don't have to be best friends, that's fine. But what can it look like for them to have a relationship? What can it look like for all the adults to get along and have a relationship? What can it look like for all the kids and the adults to have a relationship? And again, it's not necessarily, I think sometimes we get caught up in like instant gratification. And what we have to realize is some of these forming new types of relationships or new types of families, like taking the family from one way to another way, sometimes it takes time for everybody to kind of settle in and figure out what this is going to look like. So again, have some patience, have some compassion, understand that this type of growth and healing is never going to be a straight line. It's going to be curvy, it's going to be zigzag. You might take 5 steps forward and 25 steps back, and it's okay because we're in this together, and ultimately we're in this because we love each other. This could also be a great time to bring in some outside sources. If you need to bring in a therapist or bring in some sort of mentor or coach or even a trusted family member who can kind of help with things, I think that's just open the community up a little bit longer, because I like to think of myself, yes, I'm a therapist, but I like to think of myself as a member of my client support system in their communities.
Oh, that's so lovely. Telling you, y'all, she's where it's at. You need a counselor. Do you do any distance consulting?
So all of my work now is virtual and distance. So of course, I'm not seeing clients in my actual office. So all of my current clients and new clients I'm seeing virtually, and I also do mental health coaching. So that way I can see clients who may not be based in Georgia. I can really see clients anywhere in the country, anywhere over the world, so to speak. But that, of course, would be virtual as well.
Awesome. And I'm going to ask a question because I know some people might be wondering, do you accept insurance?
Thank you for asking that question. I do not accept insurance. However, I accept the health spending account card. I accept those. And I also can do what's called a super bill. So what that looks like is the client will pay my fee, and then I'll fill out the information that they need to send to their insurance company, and the insurance company can reimburse the client.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's how I kind of, move around that.
Around it. Okay. Yeah. Because I know that's the first thing people ask. Because even with my nutrition business, people, do you accept insurance? The very first question. So
it's important. I get it.
It is. I mean, unfortunately, everyone doesn't have access to those types of resources. While the services that you and I provide are absolutely necessary, so many people just can't afford it.
Yep.
They can't. And so that's why we do things like YouTube. So they'll get these nuggets. But without just meeting people where they are. So thank you, Erica. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. So thank you for being here today, and I will see you next time.
Next time.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.